I am such a professional overreactor because I watch game one of that series and I'm thinking, oh, the Bucks have every answer. They have that middle packed up. Boston can't do anything offensively. Tatum just wants to ISO. Brown just wants to ISO. They won't be able to move the ball because I told the Nets they needed to move the ball and they couldn't do it. Giannis has the answer to the Celtics' really good defense. This is going to be a short series. And then when I find out Marcus Smart isn't going to play, I'm thinking, oh, we're done here. Bring the brooms. This thing is over. And then it's 65-40 Boston at halftime. Giannis has 5 and Jaylen Brown has 25. So, Legs, what the actual heck happened?
Well, I'm not surprised, first of all, that Boston responded this way. And here's why. Very rarely do I hear a young coach speak right from the beginning of his coaching career, the way I would listen to Ime Udoka. And I said, man, this guy is sharp. Now, I've never been around him. JJ, you might know him and been around him at some point in your career and being in the league as long as you were while he was around. So I had faith that they'd make an adjustment. I didn't think it would be that extreme. What they did offensively last night was night and day from game one. It was quickly make decisions, get it to the next open jersey. Rather than shoot that shot against the closeout defender getting in the air, how about we get them off the ground and then let them fly by, take it back into the gut of the defense, draw another guy, kick. That guy now pass up a decent shot to do the same thing, and eventually you end up with three-point shots with guys shoulder square on balance. And at the end of the possession, you're finishing off great ball movement with a great look, not something desperate with 3 seconds left and not taking a three-pointer 5 seconds into the clock with a hand in your face the way they did in game one. So the adjustment was extreme. And, man, did they ring the bell and respond to what happened to them in the first game. And I give Jaylen Brown so much credit because it's one thing to play poorly and call yourself out. It's a whole nother thing to then show up and be the best player on the floor against a team as good as Milwaukee. Jaylen Brown did that. And I just said a lot to me about what level player he is and how tough he is mentally.
How about the defense, JJ? Because the Celtics hang their hat on that first and foremost. And I thought you made a really interesting point. We sit here saying, well, Giannis is going to get off. He had a tough night in game one. He only had 5 points at halftime of game two. We sit here saying, oh, Giannis at some point will get his. Maybe not that easy.
Maybe it's not that easy because we talked about that for 4 games in round one with Kevin Durant. Boston has such a luxury. We talked about this earlier. Boston has such a luxury that the defensive player of the year can sit out, and yet you can still trot out multiple two-way players, big two-way players like Al Horford, Grant Williams, of course, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. And so maybe it's more the Boston defense than it is Giannis or Kevin Durant's struggles because they can do both. They can put a great individual defender on you and game plan for you with multiple great help defenders. There's not many teams that are built that way.
I gave my Coach of the Year vote this year, Legs, to Taylor Jenkins for what he did in Memphis, and I based that largely on the fact that they remained an elite team when Ja Morant wasn't playing. I figured the coach has got to get credit for that. Ime Udoka is making me regret that now because not only game to game is he unbelievable, but I'm old enough to remember when in November we did NBA Countdown from the floor in Boston. They were under 500, and our primary topic of conversation was, do they need to break up Tatum and Brown? Have we now got to the point where we realize this combination just isn't going to work? They need to start it over, trade Jaylen Brown, get what they can for him, build around Tatum, start something new in Boston. It's clearly not going to work. And here we are, whatever this is, 6 months later, and they look as good as anybody. The coach has to get a lot of credit for that, to me.
Absolutely does, and there's a great list of young coaches in this league that are really promising. First of all, look, if you're Taylor Jenkins and you lose your only legitimate star player and you go 20-2, they might rename the Coaches of the Year award after Taylor Jenkins.
Right.
So it really, to me, it couldn't go anywhere else. And we've got great candidates. J.B. Bickerstaff, who was in here earlier, would be a candidate. He should get votes as well. Ime Udoka, right off the bat early in the year, my biggest question was after the Brad Stevens era was, what are you going to do to make the game easier for Tatum and Brown? Because they felt like guys that typically were going to pencil in, 50 points on 45 shots. That's what they were going to do. Didn't do it efficiently a lot of nights. Didn't get to the line a ton. Well, you can see what they do. They move the ball better. They actually do great, JJ, action before Tatum or Brown's going to get the ball first. Start him off the ball, get him off screens, catch it with a moving defender at them. They didn't do a lot of that prior to Ime Udoka. So, yes, no question. He deserves a lot of credit for that. And defensive game preparation, that's coaching more than anything else. Preparing your guys for the next opponent.
In their last 38 games, the Celtics are 31-7, and they have more 25-point wins than they have losses in that span. So, Straight Talk, JJ, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Who has the edge now? And now that we've seen two, I don't know who you picked before the series started, but having seen two games, right now, what does your gut tell you about where that one's going?
It feels like the Celtics are in the driver's seat, and what I think this is game 2 specifically is a testament to is the Bucks are really missing Khris Middleton.
Yeah.
They're missing his shot creation. They're missing his size on defense. And they're at some point we're going to have a close game down the stretch, and that is the closing play. The 3-5 dribble handoff, pick and roll action between him and Giannis. Yeah, the Celtics are in the driver's seat. I don't actually remember who I picked prior to this series, I'm going to be honest with you. But I did say prior to this series, it feels like whoever wins this series will represent the Eastern Conference in the finals.
So ahead of Miami and Philly and Moda. But very quickly, Legs, you and I had the same pick. We both took Bucks in 6. Do you still feel that way?
I do, and I completely agree with him, too, going into both series. I thought whoever wins this one will end up in the NBA Finals. And like this looks like it could have – it's got 6 or 7 written all over it. And, look, if it goes 7, that's Boston. You play a regular season for a reason. They will get that game on their home court. We know statistically what that means for the home team. Pretty good chance if they can get it to a 7th game, they win.
Fascinating, because there were a lot of us who thought that maybe they were trying to manipulate that, so they didn't get the Nets in the first round and instead got the Bulls, and it worked out in that regard fine. They won that series in 5. Boston, meanwhile, gets the sweep, and they wind up with home court advantage as the 2 instead of the 3 when that all happened that last weekend.